So if you've been watching the NFL at all this season, you've probably heard of this rookie wide receiver who's tearing up the NFL, Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua came out of nowhere and is just lighting up the league. Everyone knows his name now, and this is really just the beginning of what should be a long, successful career for him. Now, while Puka is a super well-known name in the NFL right now, he wasn't always well-known. So in order to get the context of just who Puka Nacua is and how he got here, let's go all the way back to the beginning. But first, thank you to DraftKings for sponsoring today's video. NFL fans, are you ready for some more exciting action on the field this week? We've partnered up with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official partner of the NFL, and they got you covered. New customers can bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. It's really that simple. Download the DraftKings app now and sign up using our promo code JDPROD, and new customers bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. DraftKings customers can also get some skin in the game with DraftKings same game parlays, where you can combine multiple bets from the same game for a chance at an even bigger payout. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, no problem. You can still get in on the action with DraftKings Daily Fantasy Sports. Again, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, sign up using our promo code JDPROD. New customers bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code JDPROD only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Thank you again to DraftKings for sponsoring today's video, and let's get right back to it. Puka Nacua was born in Provo, Utah on May 29th, 2001. His real name is actually Makea, but they went on to name him Puka because it means fat and chubby in Samoan. Now, Puka has 5 siblings, and it's safe to say that the love of football runs in the family. His brother Kai played defensive back at BYU and is currently in the USFL, and his brother Samson transferred to BYU when Puka did and went undrafted. Now, a lot of their love for the game came due to the influence of their father, Lionel, who was actually one of Puka's first football coaches. A funny story that Puka's talked about is that football films were actually played on the TV instead of cartoons when Puka was growing up. Also, a little fun fact, Puka actually played Pop Warner with Dana White's son, so apparently he's actually pretty close with the White family. Now, Puka played high school ball at Orem High School and was really good. He finished his high school career with 260 receptions, 5,226 yards, 58 touchdowns, and all of those were state records. His senior year, he was legit, being named the Utah Gatorade Player of the Year. He had 103 catches, 2,336 yards, and 26 touchdowns. Again, all of those were state records. Nacua was a 4-star recruit, the number 1 recruit in Utah, and number 8 wide receiver recruit. Nacua originally committed to go to USC, but then flipped to Washington. Puka played the first 8 games of his freshman season at Washington. He had 7 catches, 168 yards, and 2 touchdowns, but it was cut short after he suffered a broken foot and missed the rest of the season. Then 2020 was that weird COVID-19 shortened season. He only had 9 receptions, 151 yards, and a touchdown in just 3 games. Following the year, Puka entered the transfer portal and went on to play at BYU. He came in and was immediately the top wide receiver in 2021. He had 805 yards, nobody else even had 600, and had 6 touchdowns off of 43 receptions. He was really good, and that was a good BYU team as well. They ended up finishing 19th in the AP poll, and there's a couple of notable players that were actually on that team. Quarterback Jaren Hall was just a Vikings 5th rounder. Then you got guys like running back Tyler Algier, who was a 2022 5th rounder to the Falcons. He had 1,000 yards as a rookie and now is sadly the backup to Bijan Robinson. But that BYU team had some studs. Puka then battled some injuries in 2022, only playing in 9 games, but still had 48 receptions for 625 yards and 5 receiving touchdowns. He also rushed 25 times for 209 yards and 5 touchdowns. Coming out of college, there were both good and bad things to look at when it came to Puka Nacua. He's got good speed and acceleration, he's strong enough, he can track the ball well, and he's elite after the catch. And on top of all of that, it really does does help that he's a good blocker as well. Now, some of the bad things is that he wasn't that great of a route runner. He didn't have a big route tree. I mean, he's more of a gadget player. I would say maybe like Deebo Samuel-esque. And of course, you know, he dealt with some injuries. But outside of that, there was a lot to like about Puka coming out of college. He went on to be drafted by the Rams in the 5th round of the 2023 draft. And I don't think fans really expected too much out of a 5th round wide receiver, but man, did he blow all expectations out of the water. Now, of course, we know now that Puka Nacua was putting up numbers to start this season, but I don't think any of that would have really been possible if Cooper Kupp hadn't landed on injured reserve with a hamstring injury. That alone opened up so many opportunities for Puka Nacua to step up and take that #1 spot in his absence. And it's not like he waited to start putting up numbers either. He started immediately. He had an insane week 1. A lot of people didn't even know who he was going into week 1, but suddenly they knew his name. He had 10 receptions for 119 yards in week 1 at the Seahawks. It was a really good showing, really promising, and then he went on to break the rookie record for receptions in a game the next week. He had 15 receptions for 147 yards. By that point, it feels like everyone knew who he was. And then he started to take the league by storm. Week 3 was definitely his worst outing of his career, 5 receptions for 72 yards. But even though Puka was, getting plenty of yards through the air, through the first 3 weeks, he still didn't have a touchdown. But that was all going to change in week 4. Week 4, Puka Nacua finally scored a touchdown. He had 9 receptions for 163 yards and of course, a touchdown. In week 5, it was the return of Cooper Kupp. There was a lot of questions of, whether or not Puka's role would get completely eliminated from this offense with the return of a really good wide receiver like Cooper Kupp. But that really wasn't the case. Puka still had a huge role in the offense, having 7 receptions for 71 yards and a touchdown. Now, every week hasn't been amazing for Puka this year. Week 6 was definitely his worst outing of his career so far, 4 receptions for 26 yards, but he immediately turned around and had a monster week 7 with 8 catches and 154 yards. By the way, just a little side note here, that's 4 100-yard games in 7 career games. Also, he's only had less than 70 yards once. So far this season, he has 58 receptions, 752 yards, and 2 touchdowns in 7 games. It really makes you step back and think that Matthew Stafford is just so incredibly wide receiver friendly. It feels like wide receivers around Matthew Stafford just eat. The dude finds a way to make these players look amazing. He was Calvin Johnson's quarterback the year he had an NFL record 1,964 yards. And then the second most of all time was Cooper Kupp in 2021 when he had 1,947. And now look at Puka. He still has a huge role even with Kupp back. Not only that, but the Rams passing attack has surprisingly been better than I could have anticipated it to be. Tutu Atwell and Tyler Higbee both have over 200 yards this season, and they just feel better than everyone expected them to be. But more than anything, Puka Nacua looks like the real deal. He's a guy that I've enjoyed watching all this season. I'm just really loving the story, and his personality is great. He definitely just seems like a young kid that's so grateful for this opportunity to play in the big league, and it really does feel like he's soaking up every single moment of it. I really hope that he continues to succeed. I'm not a Rams fan or anything, but man, it's hard to not root for Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua at this point because he really does have an awesome story.